go anywhere. Now, where do you want me to set that?
KET, where learning comes to life.
Funding for KET's production of Fancy Farm is made possible in part by the Kentucky Chamber and Kentucky League of Cities.
Good afternoon and welcome to KET's coverage of the political speaking event at Fancy Farm, Kentucky. We thank you so much for sharing part of your day with us. I'm Renee Shaw. Now in its 145th year, the small West Kentucky hamlet known as Fancy Farm is throwing a pretty big party for denizens and out-of-towners every first Saturday in August. The annual picnic offers up a healthy portion of pork pie and politics, all to benefit the St. Jerome's Catholic Church. That is the hub of the Graves County community there. We've got a crew there to bring you the political speaking uninterrupted from beginning to end. And we've got our political commentators with us in the studio to build up to the barb trading event that will happen on that stage in just a bit, and then offer some analysis after the last zinger has landed. I'm pleased to welcome in our Lexington studio Bob Babbage, a former state auditor and secretary of state and founder of the government relations firm Babbage Co-founder. Amy Wycliffe, a Republican strategist and partner in the government relations firm McCarthy Strategic Solutions. Jonathan Miller, former state treasurer, author, and attorney with Frost Brown Todd, and Trey Grayson, a former Kentucky Secretary of State and attorney with Frost Brown Todd as well. We welcome you, lady and gentlemen. Thanks for being here in the air condition, although Fancy Farm in West Kentucky is having the best weather ever.
Yeah, I got to call Tawny. Like, you know, you've been here all this time and the best weather ever you're missing.
And Chamber of Commerce weather, right? Ashley Watts, the MC.
Yeah,
Well,
so she ordered it very good. I mean, you're starting off hot.
There we go.
I'm sure, and Marjorie Taylor Greene's going to have something to say about them changing the weather for this event.
Yeah, maybe so. Yes. Well, a lot to get to, and then there's the political speaking event starts in a half an hour, so we will kind of talk about what's been happening before the stage gets hot, because we know it might very well be hotter than the temperature is anyway. So let's talk about what's been happening so far. It's not just 2 o'clock when things happen down there local time, Trey Grayson. There's a lot that happens the weekend of leading up to the big event. What's been going on?
So at the grounds itself, there's a big event on the night before. The Knights of Columbus do a cookout, so that's sort of unofficial politicking. But the two parties have their own events. So Friday night, last night, the Republicans had an event in Marshall County. Democrats have traditionally held an event. I assume they had it again at the State Fair, or the State Lodge in Kentucky Dam Village. And then on the mornings, there's kind of usually a breakfast. So the Graves County Republican Party hosts a breakfast that I remember my first time going about 20 years ago was at Holmes Family Restaurant, which was destroyed. The building was destroyed during the tornado. Then it was in the high school for a long time. Amy will remember that. And now it's gotten so big, it's in a new tech center because there's just a lot more Republicans in Graves County and in Western Kentucky. And so that is the party's pep rally. It's only party speakers, and it's a good chance for folks in the West to go. And there are a lot of people who just go to the breakfast. Don't actually go to Fancy Farm. They'll watch the KET coverage. But it's a chance for party folks to get together and start the celebration.
Yeah, so what are Democrats doing, Jonathan Miller?
Well, I know they had their bean supper last night, and to me, the events that precede the Fancy Farm picnic are what's great about politics. It's the occasion where you get to shake hands and kiss babies and do all the kinds of stuff that when we think of traditional politics and we think of the good old days, that those are the good old days. And importantly, this is a part of the state that's often ignored by Frankfurt, or at least they feel strongly ignored. So it is great when you have that opportunity to go out there as a politician and to demonstrate that you're with the people. As far as today, I'm not sure. I think that many of them might be watching us right now, so say hello to our Democratic elected.
Do you know where? Do you know where the governor is today?
I don't.
Yeah. And so the fact that they're not there in mass today, and you just made the point about this is the only time that that part of the state really feels like they get a little sunshine. And for the Democrats not to be there, what does it say to the Western Kentucky folks about where Democrats stand with them?
Well, I think you saw a lot of Democrats go to the event last night. I saw Lieutenant Governor Coment there. I saw Rocky Atkins there. I mean, you see people that really care about the grassroots spending time out there. Governor Beshear has spent so much of his time in office traveling the state, and particularly in the west and the eastern part of the state, dealing with natural disasters. And so missing this one weekend is not going to be seen as him turning his back on a region where he's shown so much support and given so much help over both financially as well as emotionally over the last few
Do you
years.
agree with that, Bob Babbage?
To an extent. And the results for Beshear the second time he ran, when he was running for re-election, were stronger in West Kentucky, Renee, than the first time. So results matter, and he got results for the area, or voters felt like he did, or they wouldn't have made that change. It's unfortunate he's not there. I still think it's required attendance for people in office, and that would go for everybody, including a couple of Republicans who are missing out today. They may have their reasons, but people would like to hear from them. And this is the chance for everybody in the state to do that. It's something we rally around. It's a marvelous tradition. Traditions and circumstances change. Normally you have to be the nominee for November to speak. Many times, probably maybe even a couple of us on this set have begged for a speaking role when we didn't exactly meet the rules or fit the moment. You have next year's Senate race, next year's primary run today. And that's news. That's news on a national level as well as on a state level, and certainly will be quite the Fancy Farm experience.
Yeah, you're right. Because many people think that the race is going to be decided at the primary. So if you don't talk now to kind of get out of the gate, Amy Wycliffe, you might be missing a really golden opportunity. But to get to a point that Bob made, there are some Republicans who aren't going to be there. It's not that all the constitutional officers are going to be there. We know that Allison Ball, the auditor, is not going to be there, and we know that Mike Adams is not going to be there, Secretary of State.
Yeah.
So do you know why they're not there?
I do not know. I do not know their reasoning or what schedule conflicts that they may have had. I think it's unfortunate. I think this is one of the most important dates in Kentucky politics aside from Election Day. As we've said, it kind of serves as the kickoff, and so I think it's always a great time for elected officials and party leaders to be there. Presence matters, showing it matters, and so I think it's unfortunate, especially unfortunate on the Democrat side, which they have had such a focus on their rural listening tour, right, as they rebuild their party and get out and listen to voters to see what voters want in a Democrat Party in Kentucky, and to miss and to basically forfeit one of the premier rural picnics in Kentucky politics, I think says a lot. And so for them not to even show up and give Republicans a hard time and heckle and be part of the fun of the picnic is disappointing.
Yeah, Rand Paul is also not going to be there.
Correct.
Mitch McConnell, who we didn't know was going to be there, we now have confirmed that he will, in fact, be speaking.
Yes, it's his 30th Fancy Farm.
And he says it won't be his last.
He touted at the Graves County breakfast that it will not be his last. I'm going to be watching for those interactions on stage in a little bit between the U.S. Senate candidates and Senator Mitch McConnell. I think McConnell's name has been utilized more in this U.S. Senate race, even though he's not on the ballot, and we're not even, anywhere near the primary at this point.
Yeah, and so to get to that point about the Republican breakfast this morning, we have some video of showing the reception that Senator McConnell got there. A standing ovation for him. We don't know how long it was. This clip may not be the full duration of it, but certainly he received an enthusiastic reception this morning, Drew.
Yeah, he did. I had a couple friends who were there said he stole the show because it was a little bit of a surprise. I think Russell Coleman teed it up, and then he walked in and he was interesting. He made a little barb. He said, "I understand somebody's been talking against me in this race, and why would you do that? Who's the Kentucky senator that supports Trump the most?" And the crowd yelled, "You!" And so it was a kind of classic McConnell. It was also, then he gave a chance to talk about his record and what he's done for the region and for the state. So yeah, I'm with Amy. It'll be interesting on stage. All three of the Republican candidates for the U.S. Senate all have some connection and tie. They might not talk about it. They all have a pretty strong ties to the leader. I mean, all of us in the Republican Party do. There's a reason why he's called the architect of the modern Republican Party in Kentucky. And so he loves Fancy Farm. I'm really glad that he's there. I can't wait to see what he has to say. And I was really glad he got to be there in the morning.
Yeah. So speaking of, all three have connections, but there's one in particular who is kind of branding himself as a political outsider, even though he did intern with McConnell.
Yeah. So Nate Morris, who is running for office for the first time. You know, Daniel Cameron is pretty well known. We've talked about him in this studio quite a bit. Former Attorney General, former Republican nominee for governor. Congressman Andy Barr, who's been in office for about 10 years, a little more than 10 years. But Nate Morris might run for the first time. He's a businessman, but he was around politics. Amy and I were talking in the green room. We remember meeting Nate 20, 25 years ago in we were all young Republicans back then, in campaigns. And so he was involved. He was a top fundraiser for President Bush in 2004, the youngest maverick in the country. But he hasn't been he's never run before. And so this is his chance to introduce himself to voters, and probably wisely, he's trying to take that outsider lane. When you're running against two politicians in a three-way race, that outsider lane looks pretty compelling. And also the I'm the most Trumpy lane, which is a good lane right now in the Republican Party.
Yeah. I think there is what will be interesting to see as the campaign unfolds. Again, we are still very early, but I think there is it's a fine line to cross. It's okay to distinguish yourself from a Senator McConnell or any other politician, but there's a line that I'm wondering if we're getting close to being crossed, where you start to insult your voter base that you are looking to attract to you in a Republican primary, who have sent Mitch McConnell back to the U.S. Senate time and time again. And so where is that line? I think we're going to see that. We're going to see how these speeches today are responded to. But that's one thing that I'm really paying attention to, because I think as Nate Morris kind of fine-tunes that message and is clearly running, he's the new kid on the block, he's running in the outside lane, that outsider, which I think is appealing to some, right, the non-politician. But the more that you bash the current politician who has that seat and who has done a lot for Kentucky, and Kentucky voters have pulled that lever for, check that name, you wonder how much he's going to alienate that.
Yeah. What do you think, Bob?
Yeah, this is a great point by Amy, and we're all watching the three of these candidates. I hate to even repeat what Nate Morris said about Mitch McConnell and how he labeled him. I think he crossed the line and then some. So is there 40% of next May's Republican primary voters on that seminal day that would find it appealing to brutalize, in your commentary, someone who has built the modern Republican Party, led the Senate, set other records for his duration and impact for Kentucky? That is a stretch. Morris has money to put in. Barr has a money lead. Cameron's trying to catch up in the money category, but he's got the popularity. Barr has the base. Nate Morris will be an interesting factor in this race. I hate that word, interesting. He will be an extraordinary factor in this race. And to seize the moment, I'm not sure you can just run against McConnell all the time. They're all saying they're Trumpier than the other. They're all claiming the direct mail is great. I'm the only MAGA true blue or true red MAGA candidate in this race. But the debate as it goes on and gets sharpened, and that starts today, will be fascinating for us to watch, and for the national press as well.
What do you think, Jonathan?
Yeah, Nate Morris is new to elective politics, but he's not new to politics in total. He's also very smart and has hired among him, very top-notch national advisors. And I believe he does believe his path is to be critical of McConnell in a way that helps him try to secure the endorsement of Donald Trump. And so what I'm looking for today is he going to play to the crowd that's in front of him, which is probably going to be very dominant pro-McConnell, because those are where the activists are, or is he going to be playing to the KET watchers who I'm sure polls show that McConnell's quite unpopular, and he'll have a decision to make, and I'm really curious to see what it is.
Yeah. Well, we do see right now that they are all kind of filing in, and we'll be showing you this shot occasionally as we get to the pregame or get toward the speeches when they start here in just a bit. So you'll be seeing the candidates interact with each other, hopefully, as time goes on. So, real quickly, how did the picnic that's been recognized in the Guinness Book of World Records get its start? And when did it earn its stripes as being the Super Bowl of political events in Kentucky? Well, our Toby Gibbs has the answers.
The story really begins in the 1820s when settlers from Tennessee, Virginia, and other parts of Kentucky first arrived in present-day Graves County. Many were Catholic, and they founded St. Jerome's Catholic Church in 1836. A series of family reunions turned into a regular series of picnics, and by 1880, the picnic had become a fundraiser for the church, but it wasn't political at first.
My grandfather was the one who really popularized the political aspect of the Fancy Farm Picnic, and that was in the 1930s.
1931 specifically, that's the year A.B. Happy Chandler spoke while running for lieutenant governor. He went on to win that race, and Fancy Farm became a place for old-school political speechifying. We think of Fancy Farm as being the first Saturday in August. That wasn't always the case. In fact, for most of its history, it wasn't. It was in July until 1956, when Kentucky's primary was in August. When the primary moved to May, Fancy Farm was pushed back and became the unofficial kickoff to the fall campaign. Some big national names have turned up at Fancy Farm. Governor George Wallace spoke in 1975. 1 year before his fourth and final campaign for president, and 3 years after he was paralyzed by a would-be assassin's bullet.
He was up at the podium speaking, and that's when the photographers had the old-style cameras that had the exposed flash bulbs on them. Well, the photographer went to take a picture, and then it popped like a gun, and Governor Wallace flinched. He didn't say anything. So he went on and proceeded with his speech. The photographer reloaded the bulb, took another still shot of him, and it popped like a gun. Governor Wallace flinched again. He says in his Alabama accent, "Y'all have to excuse me, but I'm still just a little bit gun shy up here."
Senator Lloyd Bentsen of Texas was there in 1988 as a candidate for vice president, but he couldn't swing Kentucky to the Dukakis-Benson ticket. Senator Al Gore of Tennessee stopped at Fancy Farm 4 years later. He was more successful. Clinton and Gore carried Kentucky that November. Senator and Vice President Alvin Barkley spoke at Fancy Farm multiple times. It was familiar turf for him. The Jackson Purchase's favorite son was born in Graves County. The food has also made the history books. When picnic goers put away 15,000 pounds of mutton, pork, and chicken at the 1982 picnic, it made the Guinness Book of World Records. You might be asking, how did the community get that name? The story is, in the 1840s, when the area wanted its own post office, a visiting postal inspector stayed at a farm that made quite an impression on him, so he named the area Fancy Farm. For KET, I'm Toby Gibbs.
Thank you, Toby Gibbs, as always, for that history lesson. And if you're just joining us, you are watching KET's live coverage of Fancy Farm 2025. We are waiting just a few minutes away, about 13 minutes before they take the stage to start all the bombast on that stage, which we think could be, I don't know, maybe really exciting, considering that there are only going to be Republicans, maybe one Democrat on that stage. So we'll see how all of that goes. So thank you for spending some of your Saturday afternoon with us, and you're seeing as the candidates start to come on the stage, we'll be showing you some of that coverage as it rolls out. So you're saying, well, if this is not an election year, why is there Fancy Farm and why is there a big deal? Well, there's always a Fancy Farm picnic, Trey Grayson, and it's always a big deal because that's just how we roll in Kentucky. And even though the election is not until next year, we do have some precedent that in 2009, which really does sound familiar to you.
Sounds, yep, they got the scars to prove it.
You got the scars to prove it. Tell us about your war wounds there.
Yeah, so 2009, actually the week before Fancy Farm, Senator Bunning announced officially that he wasn't running for re-election, and now Senator Rand Paul and I were sort of maneuvering to run, and we were both invited to speak because we had exploratory campaigns. And so Bunning dropped out like the Monday or Tuesday before Fancy Farm, so the two of us spoke. And what I remember is I don't think we engaged one another. I think it was pretty much, we probably spoke against Obama and Steve Beshear, because he was governor at the time. The Democrats had two candidates at the time who were already in the race, Jack Conway, Daniel Monjardo, AG, and Lieutenant Governor, so they were allowed to speak anyway. And so the 2009 Fancy Farm was kind of a preview of the May primary in 2010. And the way I remember it, I was awesome, and the crowd loved me. No, but I think that's how it was, right? I mean,
That's how I remember it.
That's how I remember, yeah. But I would also say that actually, in seriousness, I think I did have more supporters there. But it is a reminder that the voters have the final say. And so while Fancy Farm, there's an organizational element to that. And we watch that organization. You know, Comer might have the biggest crowd there. It's his home turf, and he's a really popular, and that's also a preview. You know, we ought to probably talk about the governor's race.
27, yes, absolutely.
So there's an element to that, but it's just a reminder that when the electorate, when people actually go to the polls, that's what matters the most. And so this influences that, but we just can't say, oh, they had the best reaction at Fancy Farm. Doesn't mean they're going to win. Otherwise, I'd be the one sitting on the stage, getting ready to give an awesome speech as a third-term U.S. Senator.
Right. Well, Jonathan Miller can relate, right? Because in 2003, you gave the best speech ever then, right?
Yeah, some people say that it was my best speech ever, and some people say it was my most embarrassing moment ever. But that was, I probably gave six or seven times I probably spoke on the stage, and all but one, everybody had left by the time I spoke. And so this was the one time where people stayed for me to speak, and I took full advantage of it. I can remember not being able to hear a word that I was saying, and I was giving an imitation, I think, of Elmer Gantry in trying to preach. I was talking about the walls of Jericho falling down. So.
I remember that.
Yeah, that was a fun moment, and it will be one for my memory books because I will not do that again.
Yeah, Amy.
This is also a great time. My first Fancy Farm was there as a campaign staffer, and so that comes unique challenges when you're on the ground, and that's been my role at all of the Fancy Farms so far. But this is our first chance to see what type of organization the campaigns already have in place, right? So we're going to see how many supporters are lined up and seated and with their signs, and what type of swag is out there, and what that messaging is like. And so a shout out to all of the campaign staffers who have been in West Kentucky for the last week, setting up and making sure that all of their supporters turn out, because it's a hard job.
Well, and it's not just the candidates or soon-to-be candidates or whomever who were there, or constitutional officers. Usually there's a lot of advocacy groups there, and we know that there's also a big hole with some Democratic or progressive-leaning groups that aren't showing up this time.
That's right, and that's really disappointing that the AFL-CIO unions have called for their members to not attend. I think a little bit of that goes to who is the MC this year, which is Ashley Watts, a dear friend of mine, the CEO and president of the Kentucky Chamber of Commerce, the first female. So it is a really important and memorable year that we're about to have. And so I think, again, for any organization to call for a boycott, if you will, of a premier political picnic that is really supposed to be bipartisan in nature and really a nod to our friends in West Kentucky, I think it's odd that this is the first year, the first female, and this is the first year that they call for their members to not attend that I'm aware of.
Agree completely. Having emceed Fancy Farm and enjoyed the heck out of it, I'm very proud of Ashley being chosen, and not just the first woman, but a terrific woman at that. She'll do a marvelous job. We're still waiting on the Trump factor for all this. We're still waiting on a lot of things about this race and this day, but Jonathan Schell this morning got a big round of applause for starting the 27 race by saying it's almost certain that Jamie Comer, now a member of Congress, will be running for governor. So it's not always just about the next race, but the race after that, and that's always the big race in our cycle. But I was at Fancy Farm a long, long time ago. If you really wanted to, that was kind of the homecoming spirit of Fancy Farm. If you wanted to be relevant in Kentucky politics and connect with people and meet new people and see what it's really like out there, in the real world, Fancy Farm was the place to go. So that was an early experience. I don't know if I've been 30 times, but I've been a bunch of times. And I have been at the end when there might have been 6 people remaining to hear what happened.
KET.
I think I was there.
A couple of good times.
This is John-Stephenson speaking. I think I was there around 10 times.
A little toward the top of the agenda.
Enjoyed it every time.
I love it.
And spoke
I think it's
and
fantastic.
sang both.
It should be supported by everybody and never neglected.
So right now, you're about to see a shot. There it is.
Superintendent of
Congressman Andy
Education
Barr
for the
there, who is on the
Commonwealth of
stage, and I
Kentucky.
can't see this well from my position, but he is there. He's on the right side, and there'll be others that will show you as they get on that stage as well. So to get to your point, Bob Babbage, about James Comer, congressman currently and over the House Oversight Committee, very powerful committee, do you think he's going to sneak out a spoiler for us today that, hey, look toward 27, or will he just make it straight, stick to the script kind of speech, or will he kind of leak out a little bit about his intentions?
He's a congressman today and not a candidate a couple of years from now. He'll run for re-election next year. I would expect him to focus more beyond the district some in terms of his advertising and messaging and effort getting ready for 2027, as may other people like Rocky Atkins or Lieutenant Governor Coleman. There's a lot of thought and buzz around this, but Comer is immensely popular there and immensely popular in Washington. He's really risen to an extraordinary point. When you change your first name to chairman or chairwoman in Washington, things happen. He's great on TV. Fox loves him, the media love him, he's available, he speaks well, and he makes the state look good.
I think he will drop a hint, though. Actually, I remember last year, I think it was an interview at Fancy Farm, he made an allusion to saying, maybe it was election night, he said, you'll hear more about this in the coming years. It wouldn't shock me if he does, he talks about national politics. He is the one who has a Democratic opponent who's speaking.
Right.
The one Democrat who's on the agenda is his opponent. But my guess is, and if I were him, what I would be doing is talking about national, and then at the end saying, you know, we need some of this stuff in Kentucky, and I might have more to say about that in the future.
But I will guarantee he will not do what my good friend Trey Grayson did, which was to announce that he was running for
I said I was testing the water.
He won't do that because if he becomes an official candidate, he loses his gavel as chairman of that oversight committee, and I know he values that gavel tremendously.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you are seeing a shot of Congressman Comer right there with his wife.
And we can hear the crowd.
And
They're kind of cheering.
Yeah, they are kind of cheering. It's harder for us to hear it here than perhaps you were hearing it at home. And so we'll be hearing him and his opponent, John Drew Williams, the Democrat, a little bit. So there he is. So, you are watching KET's coverage of Fancy Farm 2025, the political speaking event that is about to take place. In the meantime, the entire community there comes together to make sure this weekend celebration that is part homecoming, part food fest, and part political stumping event goes off without a hitch. KET's Laura Rogers spoke with political chairman Stephen Elder earlier this week about the event's preparations and expectations.
For the whole Purchase region, we get to shine really one day out of the year, and that's the first Saturday of August.
That's the day some 10,000 people will arrive at the St. Jerome Fancy Farm Picnic.
It's just the heart of America, really.
It's about faith and family and fun.
And politics. This year, nearly a dozen elected officials and candidates for public office are slated to speak.
People in this part of the state want to see the candidates, and it's a lot more personal because, you know, you might be able to go right up to them and shake their hand and have a conversation, and you can't necessarily do that everywhere else, you know, throughout the Commonwealth.
This is the 5th year Stephen Elder has served as political chairman.
Working with the different political parties, different campaigns, also the media and their request. It's just a lot happens really fast.
With the election not taking place until next year, Elder says he had anticipated a lighter crowd, but the Republican primary for U.S. Senate is drawing a lot of interest.
So we think it'll be one of the larger picnics that we've had in the past. And it is also a good opportunity for those campaigns to go and try to get, you know, supporters, build that grassroots support.
It's often one of the few times you may see all of the candidates together in one place.
That's the most exciting thing about Fancy Farm is you'll see different candidates that'll shake hands with each other on the stage. They'll pat each other on the back, get a laugh, and where else do you get that other than the Fancy Farm Picnic?
Elder himself has been fascinated by the political speeches since childhood.
Well, my interest was always in politics. I remember even as a very young kid that I would sneak off from my duties from the meat stand and go up to the top of the hill where all the political speaking was. And I was always intrigued, like, who are these people? Why are they here? And then, you know, the great speakers, you know, from the stand, and I was like, wow, that's exciting.
The picnic takes year-round planning and hundreds of volunteers.
It's a sense of pride and it's a sense of expectation because we have so many people that come from, you know, all over the, you know, the Commonwealth and all over from many states around and all over the country.
Andy Hayden is picnic chairman and says it's among the biggest events of the year in Western Kentucky and a major fundraiser for charity.
For me, it is really about seeing this community come together and how everyone works together to make sure that this event runs smoothly and efficiently and where people want to come back.
And come back they do year after year.
I'm 43 and so this is my 43rd picnic.
This is my, I guess, 45th Fancy Farm Picnic. I'll be here for the next 45 years as well.
And And we thank Laura Rogers for that report. Yeah, Stephen Elder was probably born on the Fancy Farm campgrounds, and certainly he does a yeoman's job of getting all this together because it is a tremendous feat of organizing all of the picnic stuff and the political speaking, and as you heard him say, dealing with the media as well. Thank you so much. If you are just tuning in, this is KET's coverage of the political speaking event at Fancy Farm. This is the 45th year of the event, and we're so glad that you're spending some time with us this afternoon. And we are just moments away from when that stage will light up. We know that the temperature is a little bit more accommodating this year, but that stage certainly will sizzle in just a bit, or at least we hope it will. Thank you for being with us. So as we get ready to get things kicked off here, any kind of expectations you have, Bob Babbage, of what you might hear? Have you heard anything about what the lines may be or the attack lines or anything?
Nope, I have not, but we'll be listening closely for zingers that we always expect. Sometimes very good-natured, sometimes a little more of a punch in the ribs. We'll find out. The anticipation there and the excitement there, the noise, the emotion is always great to experience and great to see. It is a piece of Americana. This is an extraordinary thing in our nation, not just our state.
Yeah, and as you may have seen earlier, so usually the pavilion, it's got Democrats on one side and Republicans on the other, but it's a little different this time, right? Okay, we're seeing this. I have to turn around to see, I'm sorry, folks, to see how it's split up. So I think you have James Comer's camp on screen left, and you have Daniel Cameron's camp on screen right.
Cameron's where the Democrats usually are.
Okay, yeah.
And then you also had, I know that they kind of pre-sectioned off a section for each of the U.S. Senate candidates. And so we saw the bar section. I'm not for sure where it is looking at right there, but they had those lined up, and so we'll see how many of those seats are filled for each of the candidates, and hopefully we can hear the candidates' speeches over any hecklers, because there's going to be hecklers from there are various Republican camps as well. I'm just sad that we did not get that great lunch today. We're missing that great lunch, the barbecue.
It's always next year.
In the past.
Yeah, right. Yeah. Jonathan, what are you expecting?
I miss the vegetables. There's always so much talk about the mutton and pork, and really what the specialty is there is the vegetables. So I want to put a good word in for them.
Team veggies, right?
But I'm really curious about this dynamic with Nate Morris and Senator McConnell. Senator McConnell, I think, really ushered in the new era of Fancy Farm, just like he ushered in the new era of the Republican Party. It's a lot louder. People are bussed in, a lot more energy. Some would say a lot more mean-spiritedness. And now it'll be interesting to see if he's the target of a Republican on that stage, and I'll be very curious.
And not just Nate Morris maybe bad-mouthing Mitch McConnell, but will Daniel Cameron?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. And I think the other thing I'd just add, I agree with everything that's been said so far, is for both Morris and Barr, they have not spoken here before. And there's nothing like this that you've ever done before. So there's a little, what kind of nerves will they have? They're doing the hype music to get the crowd all fired up, which is kind of fun. But when the first time I spoke in 2003, Richie Farmer and I were having a conversation, and he was a good basketball player. I played in high school. And we joked, I said, this is sort of like shooting a free throw on the road. You've got the crowd behind you screaming, trying to distract you. You just got to keep focus on what your task is at hand. And so that's a decent analogy, but even with that, it's just not the same. You've just never done this before. I'm sure Barr and Morris have been there, so they know what to expect, but to get up there behind that podium, it's a whole nother thing.
Yeah.
It does look like a great crowd, though.
It does. I mean, I think that, we were kind of, curious about how things were going to turn out. And so it looks like a pretty robust crowd there. We don't know the numbers, and we won't know for some time. But you are seeing the stage now where things will start kicking off here soon. Stephen Elder, who is the organizer of the political speaking event, will kind of get it kicked off. And then he'll introduce Ashley Watts, who is the MC. And as we noted before, the first female to ever MC the political speaking event at Fancy Farm. So history is certainly being made today. If you're just joining us, this is KET's coverage of the Fancy Farm 2025 political speaking event. We will bring you live coverage from start to finish. Even if you're at the bottom last speaker, Jonathan Miller, we hang with it, and then we'll provide some analysis on the other side to talk about all the zingers and how they landed with the robust crowd. It's a good day to be down at Fancy Farm because the weather is a lot more accommodating. Mother Nature is certainly winking on them, and it is a Chamber of Commerce kind of day. Right now, we'll turn things over to Stephen Elder.
I'm Stephen Elder.